I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
We have such sights to show you.
Yeah, well, that's just like your opinion, man.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
Check out the big brain on Brad.
I guess I was probably returning videotapes.
I am big. It's the picture that got small.
Who cares?
Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Movie Roulette Tuesday podcast. This is Matt.
And this is Rachel.
And this is Carl.
How's everyone doing? I'm not asking the audience, I'm asking you two.
I was going to answer you.
How are you doing?
I have a cold, and I blame both of you.
Well, wait. Explain.
Because
why are we both to blame for that?
Because you both have been sick.
Yeah.
And Carl was here last week, and he was sick, and you have been here all week.
So if someone makes an appearance in your life,
I'm going to blame.
Right before
I'm
you get sick,
just cast
they're to blame for that.
Yeah, why not? I like to blame Carl for things. It's probably not his fault, but
No.
I can't.
no, I just want to.
That's kind of crummy.
That is.
Blame Carl. For
Why?
that.
I'm your friend. I thought I was your
You're
friend,
a
but
germy friend.
I am definitely sick, and Carl
Yeah.
is definitely sick as well.
No, I am.
got sick from our daughter because she came with me to the race last weekend, the Lemons race, which went very well, and we had a good time. No accidents, no black flags.
That's good.
Came in middle of the pack, despite being off the track for 3 hours. It was good, but she was sick all weekend, and
When you're in a car together, it's inevitable.
yeah, so I was also sick. So I apologize in advance.
Well, that's
for
how I
my
am.
Scratchy
You
throat and my
I'm angry about
sniffles.
it. I don't want to be sick.
Yeah, what's always good is being angry on top of being
Well,
sick.
I'm working on it.
it's good for the immune system.
I'm working.
It really
is.
is, yeah.
It makes it more robust. It boosts my T cell count.
Yeah,
so.
it gets the blood flowing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Damn it. Anyway, Carl, how are you?
I'm great.
Are you?
Never better.
You don't have anything to blame on any of us?
No.
No.
And, if I thought I got sick from one of you, would I privately and secretly blame you?
Yes.
Yes. Would I ever, to your face, say, hey, thanks for getting me sick? No, because I'm a friend.
Though. You could do that.
No,
You could do that.
I won't.
Fine. All right.
Wow. Well, I'm shutting this down. So anyway, I don't care how anyone feels. But if we sound sick, it's because we are.
I don't sound.
So, this week introduces a new theme.
New themesicle.
New theme. And this one was mine.
Yep.
That got picked. Memories from the drive-in. Yeah. So what the hell was I thinking when I submitted this theme?
I don't know.
I did have an idea. More of like a intangible
Concept.
Concept.
High-level concept.
but not really anything complicated. It's just I wanted to have something including drive-in movies because I feel like they're important in cinema, sort of, and just a part of our lives growing up.
And it was fun to go to the drive-in.
It was, and we'll talk.
It was.
We'll talk about all that stuff.
Not many left.
No, there aren't.
sad.
When there were many, a long time ago.
This is fucking genius.
It is. Look. If you say anything with enough conviction, it sounds profound.
It does. Just a little pause in
that's
between.
my secret.
I know it is.
So, you guys like drive-in movies?
Well, what's a drive-in movie? Like,
holy shit. It's not that hard.
I know, but we have a local drive-in, the Rustic Drive-In.
That's a drive-in.
Which used to be, well, we'll talk about it. But they air regular, whatever movies, whatever's playing.
Yeah.
So that's, any movie could be a drive-in movie. I know what you're saying. Drive-in movies used to be, well, to me, when I think of a drive-in movie, I think of like a B movie.
Right.
Like an exploitation movie.
Yes.
It's like a fun.
That's right.
70s.
Low budget.
Yeah.
Well, not even just 70s.
I do. That's what I think
That's
of.
what you think
Yeah.
of our 70s movies? Mm-hmm. How about you, Carl?
I would think that drive-ins would have been more popular earlier than that.
Yeah.
Like
They
all the
were.
old sci-fi movies or like the giant bug movies
Yeah.
and like all of that kind of stuff.
That's exactly what I think of.
Like 60s, 50s.
Plan 9 from Outer Space, Ed Wood.
The
Right.
50s and 60s were the peak
drive-in.
of, the drive-in theater concept, or whatever you want to call it. And a lot of those movies were made specifically to capitalize on teenagers and specifically people who were finally coming of age, not coming of age, but coming to the age where they could have a driver's license and a vehicle and pile into a car and go to the theater. So, but they did not, despite that being their peak, drive-in movies did originate in the United States. There's some debate over, did it start in the United States or did it start, like Mexico had drive-in theaters maybe a little early. But in the United States anyway, they came into being during the Great Depression.
Okay.
The first drive-in theater in the U.S. opened in 1933 in June in Camden, New Jersey. And the person who created it, his name was Richard Hollingshead, and he wanted to provide a family-friendly entertainment option that was cheap,
low overhead,
and would let people come and experience it in their cars from the comfort of their cars, because it was more private. So than being in a public theater, but you would still have that community aspect to it, right? Yeah. Where it's like a public event. And it caught on, and it quickly gained popularity. And through the 40s and 50s, we were at a peak of roughly 4,000 drive-in movie theaters across the United States at its height, which doesn't sound like a lot, but that is kind of a lot.
Yeah, no, that's a lot, and that makes sense. Like post-war, there's a car in every household. You take the car, at least one car, and you take it to the drive-in.
Yeah, and I have some other details about that later on, because people would go to the theater during that time to go see newsreels and to keep up on things.
Yeah,
I don't have that in front of me.
Cartoons.
Right this second. Yep. So
Buck Rogers.
The whole drive-in experience, you would have the cinema, but there was also the social aspect, which doesn't exist inside of cinema. It's discouraged.
You have to be quiet.
To talk. You do. You should be quiet. You should respect people around you.
But in your car,
it's like watching it at home.
Right.
But
you're getting the new movies.
Else.
Yeah.
And it allowed you to be outside.
Uh-huh.
You're in your car, but people would convene and do things before.
Yeah, you get out of the car, you play games, you can sit in chairs. You can still do that at the drive-in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. And as car ownership increased, post-World War II, it got even more popular. And it was really, it's funny that you said the 70s movies, because it was really during the 1970s, the advent of multiplex cinemas, which did happen in the 70s, and then going into the 80s with improvements in home theater technologies, the VHS and all that. Yeah. That's when drive-ins really started to decline.
They weren't as popular.
They became more novelties than something you would actually, go do, like people go to the movies today. And there's still a fair amount of overhead to a drive-in, and those economic pressures caused a lot of these theaters to close.
We had one down the street from us that closed, I think, in the 80s, Hilltop.
Yes.
And now I think the ones that are left are struggling because a lot of new movies aren't filmed on film anymore.
Yeah.
And so they're having to convert their projectors to like the fancy digital projectors, and those things cost a lot of money.
I bet they do.
Yeah, it's hard to justify that expense, reinvesting in it.
Right.
And drive-ins are not paying, you're not paying per ticket, per passenger, you're paying per carload.
And for two movies.
I know.
For a double feature.
Yeah.
Typically a double feature.
Which is awesome. That's the best part.
That's what's great about them. It's like it's like $20 a carload, but you cram four or five people in there and you get two movies.
That's a whole night's worth of entertainment right there.
And those theaters that did reinvest, it's kind of like the way that vinyl has made a resurgence in music today, where
all the hipsters like it.
Well, it's not just hipsters. It's people who appreciate and collect physical media. I think records have always given you the most. It's the best representation of the medium, right? Where when you're buying a CD, you have this it's a data disc.
Right.
And you just put it somewhere and you get a little booklet. Sometimes there's special packaging.
Well, records are more analog. I mean, they are analog.
They are
but that's
analog.
what I mean. They're
CDs are
not digital.
analog.
They're not. I don't know. They're more of a tangible.
The music
closer to the
is
music.
the item.
Yeah.
I mean, it is. It's, the sound waves are literally cut into the grooves. But a lot of people reinvested in new equipment. It wasn't good enough to just drag out your, parents' or grandparents' old record player and
The Victrola.
Right. So there was a resurgence in that, and in the drive-in, but it became more of a specialty thing, right? Like boutique, you'd have boutique vinyl and whatever, and now drive-ins are kind of like that. You have boutique drive-ins that do reinvest and have the new projectors and everything, and the amenities there. Although there's I don't know, not that many. It's like I said, only a few hundred still in operation. Wait, I wanted to see this. Yeah, one of the earliest ones. I mean, Camden, New Jersey, I mentioned, but in Weymouth, Massachusetts.
Hey.
There was one May 6th in 1936. One opened, and in Rhode Island around the same time, but I couldn't find where.
What was the name of it?
In Rhode Island, it didn't say. That's why I couldn't figure it out. It just said Mass, Rhode Island, Michigan, New York, Texas, Virginia. Those are all the late 30s.
On the Eastern Seaboard.
And those early theaters had a lot of issues with sound.
I was going to say, did they broadcast through the radio?
Because
not all cars had radio.
I think they had speakers. And like when you pull up to your space, they'd have a speaker.
Yes. Yep.
So that was actually an improvement on these original drive-ins. So the Hollingshead one, the original one, had a tower with speakers on it.
Oh, so just if you're a neighbor, you're hearing the movies every night.
Yeah.
That's right. And if you're there in the back or in the front, you're getting the sound at different times.
Ugh.
So there would be, a delay if you were in the back. And in the mid-30s, they tried to solve that with having rows of speakers in front of the cars instead of on like this big tower.
Yeah.
But you still had issues with, noise pollution and everything. People were getting angry.
I don't think I was
they didn't want to hear it.
Yeah.
So it was actually in the early 40s, 1941, RCA developed these in-car speakers with individual volume controls, and those are the ones that were on posts next to the car.
And you'd pull it into your car?
You would put it into your car, and then you could control, your own volume. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until much later that they actually started broadcasting.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. I always thought that was super cool. It's like turn your radio to whatever, and you can hear the movie.
Yeah.
I always thought that was neat.
Yeah, it is neat.
And you have to turn your car on a certain way so you don't drain the battery.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you want to obviously turn your lights off and only put it on accessory and everything else. And I guess that was a thing too, where a lot of people would have their cars be dead.
Yeah,
at the
I
end
bet.
of the theater, or at the end of the movies, rather. But yeah, so in the 1940s to the 60s were peak drive-in time. People had more kids due to the baby boom. More cars were being purchased, and it was mostly in rural areas that, for obvious reasons, right? That these drive-ins became more popular. Okay. And it was cheaper because we said earlier,
right? You get a whole carload of people
into the car,
no seatbelts, whatever,
And they would charge less. If you averaged out a carload, it's much cheaper because all these theaters have much lower overhead than these theaters. Air conditioning and all this other stuff. Plus, it was a big boon for parents with kids because you didn't have to wrangle your kids or make sure that they were behaved.
Just sit in the car
as much. It's it's your own private space, which is kind of interesting. It was also popular among teens because you'd go
Make
and
out.
have sex and smoke weed and
What?
do whatever.
Never.
Who would do that?
Bring your van to the drive-in.
Bring your van.
You have privacy. It's like
It's true.
This van's a rockin'.
It's true. You would have a place to park and do
Whatever
whatever
you
you
want.
wanted for the duration of whatever
I'm supposed to be here.
was on the screen.
That's true.
And then when popularity started to wane, they would, well, at their height and when popularity would start to wane, a lot of these drive-in theaters would have gimmicks. So they would do like, prize drawings for free admission or, some other prizes. They would do hot air balloon rides at some of these theaters. Small airplane runways or helicopters would come in. Sometimes they'd have a petting zoo.
Oh, fun.
At these places. So they tried to make it almost like a, festival type feel to it. Like make it an event, not just going to the theater.
Pet a goat, watch a movie.
The largest, or one of the largest drive-in theaters was the Johnny All-Weather Drive-In in New York. Copiagu, New York?
I don't
Never
know.
heard of that place. It covered 29 acres, and it could park 2,500 vehicles.
That screen must have been enormous.
Multiple screens, I would imagine.
I would think multiple screens. It doesn't say, but a lot of these drive-ins, like the Rustic, has 3 screens.
Yeah.
Because if you didn't like the movie you're watching, you could just like turn around and change the
the
station.
channel. That's right.
Oh, yeah.
Be like, I'm
Well,
watching this one now.
Talk about that too, because I had an experience with that. And that large one had a full service restaurant, and you could sit on the roof of the restaurant so you could see the screen.
Oh, that's cool.
Where you're eating outside. And they had a trolley system to take adults and children to a playground. And if the weather went bad, it would take you to an indoor theater, which was also on site. So it was like a giant
A complex, a movie complex.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the largest in the world, but not as unique, was the Lowe's Open Air Theater in Lynn, Massachusetts, which could hold 5,000 cars.
Wow. Is that still around?
I don't know. I don't know. But as we said, there was a decline and things went away and whatever. But there's still a few kicking around today.
There are.
And when you think of the drive-in, like we said earlier, there are a certain set of movies that are going to come to mind, the type of drive-in. Like you mentioned 70s, Carl mentioned sci-fi and kind of B movies. And there are actually, a few defining films of the drive-in era that I was surprised by that came up. One of them was Rebel Without a Cause.
James Dean.
That was a big
It
drive-in.
was a drive-in movie?
Movie. It attracted a lot of
good movie.
A lot of teenagers, but why it was kind of emblematic of the drive-in era, I'm not really sure.
Because it was a teen movie.
I guess so. American Graffiti was another one. That is a 70s movie.
Okay.
It says it epitomizes the drive-in experience with cars and music and youthful adventures, I guess. Grease was also mentioned, but I disagree with that. I mean, I guess it was popular because that one, it having a lot of, musical elements and opportunities for audience participation, maybe people would kind of do like a Rocky Horror experience where everyone's everyone's singing the songs together,
I guess,
and group viewings and things. Jaws.
That's
was a big one.
You can watch that at the Misquamicut Drive-In in the water.
Yeah.
Oh, they've got like the inflatable screen like floating.
Yeah.
Well, so they do
At
that,
the beach.
but there's also events where they put the screen on the beach and you're in the water.
Yes.
Watching it.
You watch it in the
especially for Jaws.
But I would get cold.
Yeah, I imagine most people would be.
Like, I don't want to be in the water at night.
Hours.
Thanks.
Psycho was one, and Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Yeah.
One of my wife's orchestras did a concert to Jaws on Martha's Vineyard.
That's kind of cool.
That's neat.
Nah.
So you have all these films, but what I didn't mention were all the films that got created specifically for drive-in. So all of a sudden you have an audience wanting content, wanting to go to these drive-ins a lot and see new things.
Every weekend.
So studios would dump money into kind of whatever.
Let's try this.
And that doesn't seem like a new thing. They seem to do that all the time. But they just needed stuff. So they would take a lot of different ideas, especially films that could be made on the cheap, and just cut them. Just get them made.
That's like the guy we watched, Griffey. William Griffey. Mm-hmm. He's probably a drive-in movie guy. He was the one that did Impulse with William Shatner.
Right. Yeah.
That was a ridiculous movie.
To make you into dog food.
I think of him too when I think of drive-in movies. But in that way, like made on the cheap, skeleton crew just churning out stuff.
Like a lot of local people.
Yeah, like if you watch Mystery Science Theater or... Riff Tracks, thank you.
Yeah.
Or, other things.
The Beast of Yucca Flats. Like stuff like that.
Yes, a lot of those films are, were just churned out for content.
A teenage zombie.
At that time... It just drew crowds. It's like, hey, what can we watch?
No one cared.
Blah. That's right.
It's like, let's go.
That's right.
What is this ridiculousness?
A lot of fun, interesting, unique movies came out of that.
They sure did.
And one that was really popular, and it's kind of a classic in this genre, is my pick.
Oh, you're going to get around to
this evening. Yeah, but not yet.
It? Oh, but wait, there's more.
Not yet. I will in a minute, but how can we have a theme, memories from the drive-in, without discussing our own memories from
I don't know.
From the drive-in? I say you can't.
You can't.
Since I'm already babbling, I'll go first. I can't honestly say that I have many memories from drive-in movie theaters. I know I went to several. I know that I saw, what was it? It was one of the Mad Max movies. Like, I was little and I was camping.
Nice.
And I think we went to a drive-in and saw one of the Mad Max movies.
Was it Beyond the Thunderdome?
No, it wasn't that one.
It's the best one.
Although it might have been. I can't remember. But the Rustic Drive-In was the one I remember the most. And my most vivid memory is from the Rustic. They have 3 screens, so there's like a main, the main screen, and then there's the left and right screens, and you would say what movie you wanted to watch, and it was a double feature, and you would get, in the car, and you'd park at the screen, but you could still see the other screens.
Yep.
What was going on. Now,
you have to look, though. You'd have to turn your head and look. It wasn't just right there.
Yeah, but they're there.
This is like a triangle, right?
Yeah.
Kind of.
Uh-huh. Yep.
Kind of, but all you had to do was just look.
Yeah, you got to, but you got to actively do that at the Rustic.
However, they would mix up what kind of movies they were showing. So sometimes there would be like a family movie on one screen and maybe not so much of a family movie on the other screen. Movie. At the same time. Now, I cannot remember what we went to go see, but it was on the main screen. I do remember the 2 movies that we weren't there to watch for whatever reason. So, we're there and the sun's going down and kids are running around, myself included, outside the car and playing frisbee and throwing baseballs and stuff and getting popcorn, getting ready for the movie. And then the sun went down and it was getting dark, and they'd finally put the projector on, and whatever the hell movie we went there to go see started playing. To the right of us, at this time that's snapshotted in my memory, it was one of the Karate Kid movies, where it's the girl.
Is that the next Karate Kid?
The next Karate Kid. Is that the third one?
The one with Hilary Swank. No.
No?
It was Daniel LaRusso for 1, 2, and 3.
Oh, girl was 4.
3, because 1 obviously was 1. 2 was he was in Okinawa with Sato and all of that. And then the third one was Terry Silver, the guy with the ponytail who was friends with John Kreese.
I don't know.
They were in the war together.
Carlos.
But Daniel-san was 1, 2, and 3. And then there was the next Karate Kid, which was still Mr. Miyagi, but it was Hilary Swank. Oh. Which seems too late for your story.
I was going to say, that doesn't seem right then. Because this was...
There was... I mean...
What year... Do you know what year that came out off the top of your head? Like,
not off the top of
what decade? Was it 80s or 90s? Well, anyway, there was some Karate Kid movie playing on the right-hand side. I wasn't a little kid.
94 is the next Karate Kid.
Okay, it was before that.
Couldn't have been that.
It was before that. So there was a Karate Kid movie playing on the other screen. And then on the left was Friday the 13th, or Nightmare on Elm Street, part something.
Karate Kid 3 was 89.
That's more in line with what I'm thinking. I don't know. So some Karate Kid movie, whatever the hell we went to watch, and then Nightmare on Elm Street, part whatever. And I'm like,
you keep like turning your head over and be like, "What's that?"
So you have like 2 family-friendly movies, and then horror movie.
Yeah.
Nightmare on Elm Street 5 was also 89.
It had to be.
So Karate Kid 3
was that,
and Nightmare on Elm Street 5 were both 89.
One part I remember is Freddy, some girl was in a fridge or something, and he kills her, and one of his blades on his fingers turns into a spoon, and he's like...
force feeding her?
Yeah.
And she just, explodes or gets...
Or something like that, or he's feeding her guts. So I'm watching whatever movie that we're watching, and then they were there, and I can't remember. They must have been, my mom... I think my dad was there at the time too, and myself and Kristen would have been little. My sister would have been little. So we're watching this, and I cannot stop looking over to the left. And I did not.
Just imagine
I did not like horror movies at that time.
Oh, so you were scared.
I was intrigued by them.
Yeah.
Freddy was verging on silly in those later movies. He was much more jokey.
But you can't hear it.
Right.
So you're without sound, you're like, what the hell is happening over there?
God.
So I'm seeing and hearing the movie we're supposed to see, and then there's like
this
whatever
visual.
the hell's going on Nightmare on Elm Street on the left, and then sometimes I look to the right and there's karate bullshit going on. So that had to be the most memorable driving experience. And I must have said something to my mother. She's like, just watch the movie. Just watch. You don't have to look over there.
I do. I can't
But
help
it's like
it.
right there, and you could see it in your peripheral vision. And sometimes like stuff would happen. You look over, you're like, oh shit. And
I don't want to look.
But that was my most memorable
it sounds like
drive-in experience. I know that you and I went.
We've been to the drive-in a bunch of times.
Yeah.
We took the kids.
Yep.
And we saw Finding Dory.
That's right.
And nobody cared. Yeah. Nobody cared. We might have even we watched.
We went once
thing.
when I had my pickup truck too, and we put an air mattress
in the bed. That was cool. Yeah. I remember the memorable times that I had were I went with our daughter and my sister in New Haven, Connecticut, and watched The Princess Bride. That was fun, and we made really gross Bloody Marys. In this like metal thermos. So trying to drink like tomato juice and vodka out of a metal thermos was the most disgusting.
Like drinking a battery.
Thing. And my daughter, she must have been like 12. She's like, what are you drinking? I'm like, do you want to try it? And she did. She's like, this is the grossest thing. It was really gross. But that was fun. We got barbecue and ate it. We did the same thing. My sister had like a Volvo hatchback, and we opened the trunk and kind of like lounged in the back and had pillows. It was great. I loved it. And then my most memorable drive-in experience it must have been one of the first times, or my first memory. I know I mentioned it last week, but was going to see Harry and the Hendersons at the drive-in. And I remember, what year did Harry and the Hendersons come out?
That had to be late 80s, I would think.
I would think so, because I saw it too. That was late 80s.
Yeah, I just remember thinking it was so cool that I was in the car, watching a movie, like in my own personal space, just like you
87.
talked about. Thank you. Yeah, I think that was my first trip to the drive-in. And like I could hear it on the radio, and same thing. I remember I had like pillows and blankets, and I just thought it was so cool.
Yep.
I always like going to the drive-in.
How about you, Carl?
I do not have a lot of memories from the drive-in. I never went when I was a kid because there's no way in hell my dad was going to be sitting in the car for that long.
That's not a thing he's going to do. He's like, get me out of here.
He's like, I could watch TV in my living room in my underwear. I'm not going to sit in my car for 4 hours.
Yeah.
So I didn't go until I was an adult.
Okay.
I remember when I lived in Georgia, there's a drive-in down in Georgia called the Starlight 6.
Ooh.
And they would actually show like old sci-fi movies.
That's cool.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Like retro, they'd do like retro night, and they'd show like old movies, and like the people that worked there would dress up and everything. And then I've been to Rustic, and then there's also the Mendon Drive-In, which isn't far from us. Rustic lives up to its name. It's not overly paved.
No, it's not. There's like
So
weeds
driving,
growing
like
up
finding your
between
spot,
pavement.
you're like, oh God.
That's true.
Well, and it used to be an adult
Oh, I know.
film.
And the sign, look up, it's the Rustic Drive-In. I think is it Cumberland? Or I think it's Cumberland,
Is it
Rhode Island.
Smithfield?
It's on 146.
Maybe North Smithfield.
I think it's North Smithfield.
Just look up Rustic Drive-In, Rhode Island, and look up the sign and squint your eyes.
You don't need
and
to
you'll
squint.
be able to see.
It looks like a cock and balls. That's it.
Oh, come on. I just want to come out and say it.
Yeah, that's what it does.
But it still has that on the sign. And every time I don't drive by it often, but when I do, it makes me laugh.
But that's why.
Like, wow.
It's not
It's not
getting
rid of that.
unintentional.
Yeah.
No.
But the one in Mendon,
Rustic Drive-In.
it's owned by the Andelman brothers. Who there's a for those of you not around here, there's a thing called the Phantom Gourmet, which goes around to restaurants, and I think originally it's like you didn't know who they were.
No, it was a mystery.
Yeah, it was like an anonymous.
It was a mystery, anonymous reviewer, but
Yeah.
now he's got a show, and
He's losing weight.
he is.
I heard a commercial.
Yeah, he's doing like Awaken
gonna-
360 or
Yeah, he's
whatever.
gonna
one of those
lose-
things. 180, yeah. Oh, 360 would
You
send
don't
you
wanna
right
do a
back to where you are.
360.
No, you don't
Like,
want
I'm
that.
back where I
You
started.
just want to 180 it, not 360 it.
And that one's nice and paved. They've got like a beer garden and everything.
Ooh, a beer garden.
Wow.
But the only movies I remember, I even asked my wife, because I've been with her a few times, like, what movies did we even see?
she remember?
Like, I know we used to pop our own popcorn. We used to, like,
Cute.
make, like, a big bag of popcorn and just bring it with us.
Good
Just
idea.
because it's...
I like that. Economical.
They're not
You
going
can, yeah.
buy whatever
Yeah.
candy you want. It's going to be cheaper bringing it with you
Oh, of course.
than
And
it
they're
is
not
buying
going
it
to
there.
check.
But I mean, I don't remember Rustic, but I know Mendon has like a whole place you can get like hot dogs.
Rustic
and,
does
and
too. They have a
pizza
concession
and
area.
all sorts of stuff,
Yeah.
but you pay out the nose for it.
And they have bathrooms and.
Literally, the only movie she remembers seeing there is the Hercules movie with The Rock
Okay.
in like 2014.
Wow. All right. You guys went to see that, huh?
I think I might have seen one of the Godzilla, like the newer, like the newer,
Yeah.
you know, U.S.
Sure.
Godzilla movies.
Yeah.
I think I saw one of them there, but I would rather watch a movie in my house.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Because
The
it's like
drive-in's
sitting in the
fine,
car
but
that long. And
I
it's
never
just,
stay for the second movie. I'm always like, let's go.
the two movies back to back, they're giant lines because they've got like one bathroom. Like it's and I worry about the logistics of things. I'm
know you
worried
do.
about my car battery the whole time.
They'll jump you.
I know, but I don't want to have to do that.
Or just
I
bring
know.
a jump pack with you.
And then there's always somebody in the front that'll put their headlights on.
I
And
know.
like it's like
Yep.
like I don't want to have to deal
It's
with
like, why
this
did you
nonsense.
do that? Yeah. Why?
So it's not. It's for me. It's exactly as you described. It's a novelty.
Yeah,
It's
it
like
is.
Well, it is a novelty now.
there are way more comfortable ways to see a movie.
I don't even want to go to
sure.
the movies anymore. Like, I can watch any movie I want in my home without other people, in climate control, with my own private bathroom.
You can pause the movie if you need to.
Yeah, I can get snacks that they don't charge me an arm and a leg for. So, yeah, but I do think the drive-in every once in a while, I think it's a great date night thing.
I don't want to see them
especially-
go away. I like the idea
it's
that...
because of you that they're going away.
Oh, yeah, I put them out of business.
You did.
Just me.
It's because of you.
To Carl's point, that is why a lot of them are going away. It's because the home experience is...
You got high-def televisions, huge screens.
Yeah.
Like, they didn't have 80-inch televisions back in the 60s and 70s, you know what I mean?
Or Dolby Atmos.
Well, okay, so you hit the nail on the head for me. That is the only reason why I like to go to the movies every once in a while. Like, if there's something I actually want to see...
Oh, the sound.
Is the sound. Because that I cannot replicate
That's
at
true.
home.
Yeah.
Not to the degree that, a movie theater can. And yeah, the reclining seats are nice, and I understand that ticket prices have to go up as a result because they invested in the theater and because... You went from like a 300-seat theater when it's just rows of seats to a 100-seat theater when it's recliners. But you have a reserved seat. You don't have to worry about that stuff. It's,
It's a little nicer. It's a little more quality.
It is, but... And they do try to make it an occasion as opposed to, just... I don't know. You can go to the movies at anytime you want, but it seems like more of a thing because of that exact reason. At home, you can do all this stuff, and you have... your own bathroom, you have your refrigerator, you have your own couch, you can pause it.
I used to go to the movies almost every weekend.
Yeah.
I know.
Especially in the summer. Now,
you don't go.
I go maybe 4 times a year.
Wow.
Yeah.
If that. I just, and people just don't know. They don't know how to behave in public.
There's a lot of etiquette problems.
There's etiquette problems. People just don't give a shit anymore about any other people around them. Yep. And back when we were kids, you'd get kicked out of the theater.
Mm-hmm.
You had ushers.
You had ushers.
Coming in.
And you'd be like, cut the shit or you're going.
And a projectionist. Everything's automated now.
Now, they don't care if kids are running around screaming. Like, no.
They should get those Tesla robots to get people out. Just freak them out. Be like, get out. Or pick them up and bring them out.
No, why would I spend what they charge for that to have to deal with that?
Right.
Just stay home. Wait for it to come onto streaming.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's not just us older curmudgeon-y people. It is... See, like our daughter, she'll go to the movies with friends, but it's more... as like, a fun thing to do with friends.
Social. Well, yeah, that's what we
it's
did.
It's special and it's intermittent. It's not a regular thing.
No.
I don't know. Stuff's different now.
I don't know,
really
but
weird.
You're right. Like the movie sound experience just isn't the same. For example, the Batman, the newer Robert Pattinson Batman. In the beginning of the movie or the earlier stages of the movie, there's a scene where he comes out of the tunnel and you can hear his boots before you see him. And we watched it in the theater, and the sound of his boots was awesome. It just sounded so good and so deep and so resonating. And then we watched it at home recently, and we have a good quality sound system. And I was waiting.
The TV's better.
I was waiting for the sound of the boots, and I'm like, oh,
it's not the same.
Not the same.
Our sound system could use an upgrade.
Okay. Are we making more plans on the podcast?
I've had this on my wish list for a while.
Speaking of our podcast plans, Matthew and I went on the dinner train, and it was awesome.
Yeah,
we had such a good time. It was worth it. So
thanks, Snowpiercer.
Yeah, it was better than Snowpiercer. It wasn't.
We had protein blocks.
Oh, right. Here's your jellied block. No, it was good. So I was happy about that.
Yeah.
So
what are we watching? Yeah. Can we get there?
So almost 40 minutes in.
1,000 years later.
Well, because
I know. No.
Set the table.
This discussion is more important than the actual pick itself.
It is.
Just like, the concept of a drive-in was more important than the films that were produced to draw people.
Nice. I see what you did there.
My pick is The Blob, 1958's The Blob. It is a classic sci-fi horror film directed by Irvin S. Yeaworth Jr.
Yeaworth?
Yeaworth.
Oh, sorry.
Jesus, Rachel.
Sorry.
And to me, I picked it because it just, it epitomizes that schlock drive-in sci-fi campy.
Oh my God, the theme song to this movie is so corny
stuff. It was corny, but again, it was kind of interactive with the audience. Everyone would freak out and scream and yell and whatever. And
it's a teen movie.
In a drive-in cinema, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a teen movie. It did develop a cult following. It was often part of a double feature, which we talked about, playing heavily with the drive-in. And the film kind of resonated with viewers because it has themes of an alien invasion and paranoia, and it kind of reflected
the Red Scare,
the zeitgeist, the Cold War, era, and it added kind of depth to it, where people would go to the drive-in to experience entertainment, but it was also a reflection of contemporary issues at the time. So yes, the Blob. In short summary, it follows this mysterious gelatinous creature that falls to Earth from a meteorite and begins to consume everything in its path, growing larger with each victim.
Oh, no.
It also centers on a teenager named Steve Andrews, who is played by Steve McQueen. And his girlfriend. Who witnessed the creature's rampage.
She doesn't have a name.
No, she's not important. And they race against time and warn everyone. And, it's the usual ridiculous nonsense. But I thought it was kind of symbolic, emblematic, whatever you want to call it, of
the drive-in.
Classic height of the drive-in experience. This is something that you would go see on a double feature, on a date night, in the late 50s, in your, whatever model car with your
Chevy
friends
Bel
or your
Air
date or whatever.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Should I make popcorn?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Larry Hagman directed the sequel.
Oh, really?
Yeah. There was like Beware the Blob and then Son of the Blob, I think.
There's
they
a lot
made
of
a bunch
blobs.
of Blob movies.
Blobtastic. I prefer Attack of the Killer Tomatoes.
Well,
which I rented from the library when I was like 10.
Attack of the Killer Tomatoes.
Yeah. Terrible.
I don't know. I've seen the Blob, and from what I remember, first of all, I could have sworn we saw it for MRT pre-podcast, but these guys say no.
Because we didn't.
I checked my list, Rachel.
Fine. And secondly, and I could be wrong about this too, I thought this movie was incredibly just boring.
Yeah, I have no guarantees. I don't know what to tell you.
How could a movie about a gelatinous creature eating people be boring?
That's what I remember.
Yeah, but
I remember that was my takeaway was...
I think your brain is filling in false memories.
Maybe.
For some reason. Or maybe you're absolutely right. I don't remember.
Are you sure you're not mistaking this for Driving Miss Daisy?
I never saw that.
Okay.
I've never seen that. I also like the movie The Stuff.
Very different.
Yeah, you keep saying that every time we talk about
like
this.
The Blob.
It's not like the Blob.
No, it's a marshmallow-like food product.
Yes.
It's not at all like the Blob.
It is like the Blob.
No.
Okay.
So that's what we're watching. It happens to be on Max at the moment. And remember to turn off your headlights and tune into the right station, turn up the volume on your box.
FM.
And
it was either it was like a low FM number, like 97.1. Right? It would always be like a low FM number?
Sure.
I don't know. Carl, what did we have from the concession stand tonight?
We had pork lo mein, which was very tasty.
Thank you.
And egg roll things.
Egg rolls. Spring rolls.
Which were also tasty.
Yeah.
And those little sushi...
The weird little kimbap from Trader Joe's.
Which were just as good this time as they were last time.
And Asian slaw salad, which you just refused to eat.
Yeah, no. Fill up on noodles and pork.
That's fine. Just stuffed with noodles and pork.
Yep, I got a blob of noodles and pork right in my stomach right now.
Beware of the blob. All right, and then we'll break for dessert somewhere in this gelatinous mess. Gelatinous cube. That's a D&D thing.
That is.
The gelatinous cube.
Yep. Yep. All right, beware the blob. Here it comes.
Okay.
All right, and we are back.
We survived.
We survived the blob.
We did not get consumed by the blob.
But I did, I think, fall asleep once.
You did not. No way.
Just briefly. Yeah. Because
why did you fall asleep?
Because
briefly.
It was kind of super boring.
Was it?
Yeah. Yeah, it was.
Okay. I feel vindicated.
Yeah. What did you guys think?
Carl, please.
I think it's fine.
I knew he was going to say that.
I mean,
Fine.
it's a 50s horror movie.
Yeah,
it feels like a 50s horror movie.
It disappoints. It disappointed me the first time I watched it, and it disappoints me again.
I think audiences of that era probably were more engaged with it.
I don't know.
I mean, the effects were kind of cool. I mean, for the time.
Yeah, I mean, the Blob isn't on screen that much, and it was late 50s. It was almost the 60s, and there were, I don't know.
I just feel like there was a lot of mundane dialogue, like really boring dialogue about what are you going to do this weekend, and I don't know.
There's a lot of filler.
Like, I understand you can't show the Blob 24/7. You got to, like, tease it and show it little by little, but this was just like...
Well, maybe this was the 50s version of trying to get you invested in the characters.
Were you invested in Steve and Jane and Dave and Phil and...
They do say their names a lot.
Steve.
Dave, thank you. You're welcome, Steve.
I know.
Are you sure, Dave?
Jane. Steve and Jane are friends.
So... I don't know, in way of a small recap.
Oh, give us a recap. Tell us what happens in this movie.
Steve and Jane, don't call her Janie.
Janie girl.
The oldest teenagers you've ever seen in a movie.
The 30-year-old teenagers, all of them. Every single one.
Every teenager.
Like, you couldn't tell the difference. There are cops in the movie, and there are teenagers, and they look to be the same cohort of people.
Yeah, because they are.
Yeah.
There's like a 7-year-old kid who's pretending to be a baby.
Yeah, that was weird too. With a big scar on his face, like a knife scar. He's seen some shit.
He's a carny.
He's a carny. His name was Danny. At least he had a 2-syllable name.
Yes.
Yeah.
When he's older, they'll call him Dan.
Steve McQueen playing the character Steve.
Andrews.
It's like Jack Nicholson's always Jack in every movie he's in.
Steve.
Steve Andrews and
Jane. Martin.
They are out, like, basically parking. They're out on a date.
Yeah, Jane's not feeling it, though. Jane's having none of Steve's shenanigans.
No, she feels like she's being played.
Yeah.
He's, pulling out all of his lines on
his
her.
Moves.
And whatever. And while they're talking, there's a shooting star meteor that
it's close.
Crashes into the earth. It's close.
It is close.
And it makes that, like, sound.
Yep,
which
it does.
Nothing does.
No, it does in this movie.
But it crashes nearby, and they try to go find it. And while they're searching for it, we see, I guess, a farmer, an old man who lives nearby.
Yeah, he's like a hermit in a log cabin.
He's living in the woods with his dog, and he grabs his lantern, and he goes out and he finds the crater. And there is an object at the bottom of the crater that's kind of like meteorite /
looks like a tiny
thing.
moon. It's got craters on it.
Yeah, and he pokes it with a stick. And
as one would do.
Obviously, sure. I would.
When he does that, it cracks open, and inside is this gelatinous blob thing that
the titular blob
attaches itself.
Sorry, that's what it is.
Attaches itself to the stick that he poked it with.
Yep.
And suddenly it shoots up the stick and consumes his hand.
Yes. Or it attaches itself to his hand.
Well, it engulfs his hand.
Like a glove.
Mm-hmm. And it seems to be painful based on the noises and expressions that this old guy's making.
Oh yeah, he's acting.
And he's running. He just runs and he's yelling. And
Steve and Jane also go out to the site. They try to find it, and they can't. So then Steve feels stupid, and Jane kind of makes him feel stupid. And he's like, all right, let's go back to town, and I'm sorry I did this. I'll buy you a sandwich.
And they literally almost run into this man who's struggling with this thing.
Screaming with the ham blob.
Comes out of the woods into the road. They slam on the brakes. And they end up loading him in the car and bringing him to a local doctor that they're familiar with.
It was a really nice house.
In the town.
Really nice Victorian home.
Home/office.
Yes.
So the doctor was on his way out. I guess he was leaving for some sort of medical conference or whatever. He wasn't supposed to be there the next day. And they arrive as he's walking out, and he's like, okay, I'll see you. So Jane stays in the car, and Steve brings the old timer, as they call him, into the office, and he gets placed on the table, and they look at the blob thing on his hand, and it's gotten bigger. It seems to have moved up his hand up onto his arm. So it's growing and seemingly consuming him. So why does Steve leave? He leaves, and the doctor
sedates the old guy because he's making too much noise, and he says to Steve, go see what else you can find.
Right, see if you can find where this guy came from.
Because no one knows who he is.
No.
Right? No one knows his name, or he's not familiar to anybody.
Right.
Okay, that's right. So Steve does leave with Jane, and they do try to go find it, and more on that later. But the doctor is, mystified by this thing. He has no idea what it is. He's looking through his books, and he ends up calling his nurse back into work.
The best part.
What?
When he calls the nurse, and he's like, what's her name? Kate? Yeah. Kate, you have to get back here. There's a guy with like a gelatinous mass on his hand, and it's eating him alive. I need you here now.
What a way to get called back to work.
Right. So she comes back.
Yeah, she does come back.
Be like, what? Gross. I want to see that.
But while Steve and Jane are trying to find this guy, they run into friends, and there's all sorts of bullshit about like racing and cops because he's driving on the road.
Teen things.
Teen things. This is the filler.
This is the BS. Yeah.
I think. Well, I don't know that it's filler. I think it's trying to set up the fact that the police don't believe them.
You're right, because they're kind of hooligans.
Or they're known to the cops. They cause trouble.
Yeah.
They're kids, right? They're teens.
And then they set up that one cop is sort of sympathetic to them.
Dave.
And then the other cop they're like, oh, thank God you didn't get pulled over by Bertie or whatever his name was.
Right, because he's hard on them. He doesn't trust any of them. And
so they're setting up later things.
It is true.
And you're right. That's the purpose of those scenes. But they just take a long time to get through. And it's kind of almost uncomfortable as the audience like watching it, and it's like, okay.
But maybe if you were a teenager in the 50s, you'd be like, yeah, I know, I can identify.
How are they going to talk their way out of this one?
Whoa.
I guess. I mean, are we that far removed where it's
probably
yes,
that unidentifiable
from that age and that decade? We didn't grow up in the 50s and know what it was like. So, to us, it's kind of corny. But maybe, if you were in it
I would argue that it's still corny.
Well, it is, but maybe in the time it worked. I don't know.
Okay. So anyway, yeah, they're driving quickly, or was that to the doctor's office?
Oh my God.
This is why I'm so terrible
now
at
he
this.
drives.
It's like a jumbled mess.
Steve and Jane go back to the old guy's shack.
No. Where did they run into their friends?
After.
At the doctor's, because they cut them off.
Yeah.
Because they cut the friends off.
Racing.
Speeding. They passed them illegally because they were speeding to the doctor's. Then when they left the doctor's,
the kids were there.
The kids were there in front of their car, like, hey, you beat us in a race or whatever.
Right. I'm the speed king, and you can't. I challenge you to a speed race.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's how we meet their friends.
Right.
So there's like a whole rigmarole with that. And then all of a sudden Steve remembers, oh yeah, we were supposed to go find out.
Help investigate the gelatinous substance.
Yeah, that I've never, that's really bizarre.
Lives. So he asks them to come along.
And they want to go to the movies, but they're like, all right, we'll do this first.
Right. So they go investigate, and eventually they find this old timer's house.
With Carl's favorite line.
In the woods with Carl's favorite line.
One of my favorite, it's not my favorite line. It's my favorite line in the movie. They're in the woods looking for anything.
Yeah.
And they hear a dog barking, and I think Jane says, see, maybe that is a house back there. And one of the friends goes, that doesn't sound like a house. It sounds like a dog.
So
and he says it just like that.
Yeah, he does.
So
like
dumb.
Acting really hard.
It's just super goofy.
So they pick up the dog, who is really cute.
It was inside the house.
The dog is the star of the movie.
Right, but nothing's there.
No.
The dog is like a little German Shepherdy looking thing.
No, it's like a terrier.
But they find the crater.
It's not a terrier.
It's like a little terrier thing.
It's not a terrier.
Okay.
Not at all.
They do find the crater.
They find the crater.
They do find the crater, and there's a piece of this egg thing that's in there, and it's still hot. And because I guess they all saw the meteor
right
when it went across the sky, and he's like, "Oh, you think this is a piece of the meteor?" Well, I don't know. There's a lot of shoulder shrugging.
There's a lot of dumb teenager stuff. Yeah.
So they.
Meanwhile, back at the doctor's, Kate has showed up, and the doctor's leafing through his medical journals trying to figure out what this gelatinous goo is, and he realizes that it has consumed the old guy.
Well, he doesn't. He sees it. He sees it
moving under the blanket,
thumping away.
That's right, from afar. So then he tells. Now it's on the floor and menacing. And it's got Kate in a room, and she could totally jump over it or go to the side, but she doesn't. And the doctor's like, throw acid on it. So she does, and it doesn't work. And he's like, well, that's it. So then...
Well, he goes and gets his gun.
He gets his shotgun. The blob ends up eating Kate, the nurse.
Because she inexplicably, falls into a lamp.
I can't.
Which
I'm terrified, doctor.
Yes.
I am so terrified.
And she just falls down.
Helplessly... falling against the wall. I don't know. It's okay.
Breaks a lamp, which causes the power to go out.
Yep. So then...
And it consumes her.
It eats her. Now the doctor's like, oh, shit. And at the same time, Steve and Jane are coming back to the doctor's house to kind of close the loop. And they can't open the door, and it's dark, and there's no noise. And they're like, what the hell? So Steve goes, let me go see if his car is in the garage. And he goes around to the back, and he happens to see the doctor, smash against the window, and the blob eats him in front of the window in front of Steve. So then Steve's like, oh, my God. He tells Jane, and they decide we need to go to the police. So they go to the police, and Steve does the worst job communicating to the police what the problem is.
Yeah, they don't even mention the old guy.
No. He's basically like, the doctor's dead. A monster ate him.
That's literally all he would say. And the police are like, can you give us more than that? You can't just say a monster. No, he's dead. A monster ate him. I saw it in the window.
I know what I saw.
It's like, oh my God. So the police go out there, and the skeptical cop and the friendly cop go. And they have to break into the doctor's house because the lights are off. The housekeeper comes in. They can't find any trace of the doctor. And the housekeeper's like, well, no, you're not going to find him. He's gone away from the weekend. I just talked to him on the phone. And Steve is shouting in the background, no, he's dead. A monster ate him. I saw it in the window. And you just want to throttle Steve.
But this lady is every explanation, well, his car's still in the garage. Well, yeah, because maybe that other doctor came and got him.
Right. She has an answer.
She has an answer for every single thing.
Yeah. It's true. And she explains that he's getting picked up by some other doctor.
Even though everything was locked from the inside.
Right. But nobody wants to deal with it. So skeptical cop thinks it's the kids playing a trick. You guys stop horsing around, and this has gone too far.
Because he has some sort of background, a military career.
They're upset with him because he was in the war? I don't...
That's what he thinks.
Yeah.
So he thinks he's like, these kids don't like me because I was in the war. Which, that was it.
Which war would it have been at that point?
I think it could have been either. It could have been World War II or the Korean War.
Yeah.
I don't know, because he doesn't elaborate. And then it come to find out there's a little offhand line that just because a teenager hit his wife on the turnpike doesn't mean all teenagers are bad. It's did his wife die? Is she okay? Was it a fender bender?
I don't know, but I need
to know. He has a beef.
Pent-up animosity towards teenagers.
He has a chip on his shoulder about teenagers and doesn't trust any of them.
I mean, none of this is relevant, by the way. It's just...
No, it's super relevant. So Dave, the good cop, is like, I'm going to call your parents. We'll figure this out in the morning. Obviously, something has happened, but I don't know what it is. I need to wait to see if I can reach this doctor at whatever hotel he's going to arrive at. He's probably traveling now, whatever.
And it's interesting because these are all supposed to be teenagers.
Yeah.
Steve McQueen looks 30.
He's a man.
Because he almost is, right?
And
He's an adult
their
man.
parents all look like they're in their 60s.
I know.
Yeah.
It's true.
All of them.
I know. It's bad.
But I mean, that's pretty common throughout, 50s movies where everyone is way older than they're supposed to be, and their parents are like super older.
But like Jane has a little brother, the little boy with the scar in his face.
Oh, he's the worst.
Who was supposed to be like, I don't know, 4 or 5. He's probably 7 or 8.
He sounds like he's
And the
supposed to be
mother
4 or 5.
of this child has to be like 60.
Yeah.
And it's like that. This is like a medical miracle. What happened here? Did you adopt this kid? I don't know. It's just weird.
He's got a bizarre speech impediment where
He does.
the kid needed subtitles. Let's be fair.
He was cute.
He's supposed to sound like cute.
Precocious.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you're my sister.
But I think it just came off kind of creepy.
It is creepy, and he's like way too big.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
But yeah, so the police call their parents, Steve and Jane's parents, and they both go to their respective homes, but they have every intention of getting back together and going out and searching for this thing. And
Right. They can't let it go.
Warning the town.
And
Which I don't
meanwhile-
like. Why are they so invested in this?
'Cause
like,
I don't know.
I know
And I
'cause
don't-
for the movie to happen.
Right.
But
Other than that,
at that point, it's like, well, the police don't believe me. I tried to tell them.
I think because they know people are in danger, I guess.
right? That's the premise where they're like, oh, we have to warn people.
And meanwhile, the
Something's out
Blob
there
is
killing
just
people.
Eating random
absorbing
people.
with impunity. Just eating people. You're seeing like clips of random people get consumed. Mm-hmm. And it's getting bigger.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
So
Jane ends up going to Steve's house, and he's, Jane has the scene with her weirdo, younger, creepy brother who catches her leaving, and she kind of feeds him a story, which takes way too long. Mm-hmm. And she leaves and goes to Steve's house, and Steve waits until his parents go to bed and hears them talking through the paper-thin walls about what happened earlier, and he
sneaks out.
Yes, sneaks out through the window.
Takes the car silently out of the garage.
God. Yep. Go ahead. Take it away,
No,
please.
go. Just go.
No, because you're chomping at the bit to do
Just
this.
do
So
it.
do it.
Come on. You
Go.
do it.
Come on, dead
All
ass
right,
sucks.
fine. So, Stephen, what's her name? Jane, take the car, and they gather the friends, right? They go to the movie theater and they get the friends.
Because their friends, they figure are their last hope of somebody believing them.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then... No.
No, they go to
I'm
the
sorry.
the supermarket
They walk
first.
by the supermarket and the automatic door is open.
They don't walk by the supermarket. They're looking for the dog because they lose the dog.
And they find the dog huddled in like the
In the
That's
corner,
right.
near the front
That's
door of
right.
the supermarket. So they go to get the dog, and he steps on the pad, and the door opens, and he's like, "That's strange. The door normally closes." And he goes through the whole evening routine of the grocer.
Yes, he does. Play by play.
So they go inside the grocery store. They're looking around, and the Blob's in there.
Yeah.
Jane thinks that it eats the dog, but it really doesn't, and it sort of kind of corners them into the meat refrigerator.
Yes.
In the back, and the Blob like peeks itself underneath the door. It squeezes it through, and it almost like looks around a little bit.
Yeah.
And then it leaves.
And it's like, nope.
Yep, it nopes out of there.
For whatever reason, even though there's all that food and stuff for it to consume and people in there, it's like, oh, I don't hear anything.
No.
I'm out of here. So it leaves, and they make it out of the store out front, and they're like, "Oh my God, we know where it is!
Right, we have it cornered.
We have to tell everyone, and call the police, and blah 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 blah." Right.
So they get their friends at the movie theater.
Yeah.
And the friends come out of the theater, and they convince the friends to call the police. They're like, if Steve calls again, they're not going to believe me. They're going to think it's part of the same prank. So the friend calls, but Dave, the friendly cop, has gone home. So they get Jim, the mean cop, and he doesn't believe them. He hangs up on them. He's like, I'm done with this nonsense. And in the meantime, the Blob makes his way to the movie theater, eats the projectionist, and then comes through the projection holes into the theater itself. And there is these famous stampede of moviegoers.
Well, before that,
Oh.
they wake the whole town up.
Yeah.
Because they're like, well...
I thought they did that after.
No, because the crowd was in front of the supermarket when the people started running out of the theater. If you're going to hijack somebody's
maybe I fell
recap,
asleep.
Rachel...
I don't know.
You should get it right.
I can't get it right.
You just like barge right in. You're like, no.
I want
You're
you
not
to tell
doing
it
it right.
faster.
Tough shit.
No. Faster.
This is not your episode.
No, it's not.
So shut up.
No, I have to talk on the podcast.
Please do it correctly.
So they decide, well, if the police aren't going to believe us, we're just going to get the whole town over to this supermarket because we know it's in there. So with a combination of honking their car horns, setting off an air raid siren, I'm not sure, did the town have one? And they just, I don't know.
I guess so.
Fire alarms, basically any alarm they can find, they set off to wake up the entire town. And so now they've got the entire town in front of this supermarket. And the cops are there, and the fire department's there, and they're like, what?
Yeah.
What?
Steve's like, just listen to me. Listen to me.
This was our last resort. It's in the supermarket. So they Bert or Jim,
bad cop
goes into the supermarket, and he's like, there's nobody in there.
Yep, which is true.
So what the hell? And then they hear screaming from down the street.
Oh.
And this crowd of people come running around the corner. Okay. And they're like, oh my God, the theater.
Yeah.
And the Blob had killed the projectionist.
Right.
Blobbed its way through the little window.
Yeah.
And now it's enormous.
Starting to consume the audience.
There's hundreds of people running out of the theater. And interestingly, there's a guy I follow on YouTube who lives in Pennsylvania. The only reason I know about this, the theater... that was filmed is in Pennsylvania, and every year they do Blob Fest, and they stage a running out of the theater. So they get everybody that attended Blob Fest pile into the theater, and then they have them all run out screaming every year.
Does anyone get trampled?
Dangerous.
Yeah.
And then, well, they had fun.
They're scared.
They're not scared, but there's like a piece of Blob like in the theater in the back, like where it came through. There is a window with like Blob you could touch.
Oh, nice. Gross.
But they all come running out of the theater, and the Blob is like the size of the theater at this point. It's huge. It's like building sized.
And perspective gets a little weird because you're like, how big is this thing really? And all of a sudden it's enormous. But
yeah, because up until that point it was like a beanbag, like a little beanbag chair size.
That's what it seemed like.
Even when it was with the projectionist, it wasn't that big.
Yeah, it didn't take over the room or anything. It was, I don't know.
But the good cop did go in the theater.
Right.
And then he came out and he was like, oh my God, that's the worst thing I've ever seen. And at a point later in the movie, he says that it must have killed 40 people. So I guess logically the assumption is it ate a bunch of people in the theater.
And then just blew up.
And just
became huge.
Because it was pushing its way, like it was floor to ceiling through the theater doors and like oozing its way through.
But it does come out and people are running and screaming, and Steve and others, there's a diner across the street, and they make their way there because Jane's little brother
is shooting like a pop gun.
He tries to shoot it.
Yeah, he tries to shoot it. He eventually throws his gun at it, which I guess it got consumed. And so they all run into the diner, and then suddenly the Blob, like, you see a shot of the Blob and a diner, and the Blob just consumes the diner.
It just leaps on it and takes over the whole thing.
Encapsulates the whole thing.
It's kind of like the museum at the end of Ghostbusters 2.
Yes. Yeah.
Yep.
Very much so.
So the Blob is around this whole thing. They're trying to figure out what to do. The police outside eventually try to shoot one of the high-powered lines and have it fall so that it electrocutes the Blob, but that does nothing.
Except start a fire.
And turn the power out in the whole town.
Right. So there's now a fire inside, and they get the fire extinguisher, and they notice that the Blob reacts to the fire extinguisher. Right?
It recoils.
Starts to recoil away. And that's where I started fading out. So I'm
Did
not
you
sure
really?
Exactly.
That was the most exciting part of the movie.
I'm not kidding. No. Yeah. So I know that the Blob was reacting to that, but I definitely need help here.
Well, Steve puts two and two together at that point. It says it's the cold.
The CO2
That's
extinguisher.
why it didn't go after them in the meat
Right.
cooler.
Okay, right.
And now with the fire extinguisher, so he's yelling. The police had called the diner to open up, dialogue between the cops and who's in the diner. And Steve is yelling up the stairs. Apparently, they left the phone off the hook.
Phone. Yeah. CO2.
CO2, cold. So they end up they recruit the friends, and everybody goes through the town collecting whatever CO2 fire extinguishers they could find.
Yeah.
And they bring them all back, and they start spraying the blob to try to get it off of the diner. They get it off the diner. Steve and Jane and her weird brother and the owners of the diner all climb out. They're safe. They're fine. And they've sprayed the blob so much with the fire extinguishers that now it's frozen.
Mm-hmm.
Ah, right. Okay. I did wake up to hear that it was frozen.
Yes.
And at that point, they're like, well, we can't kill it, but we froze it. And basically the movie ends with them dropping the blob somewhere in the Arctic.
Yeah, they call the army. And the army's like, we'll take it to the Antarctica.
Was that what that was?
Yeah.
Yes.
Because I saw the chutes. I'm like, why are they dropping it into the ocean?
No, because it lands on the snow.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't submerge.
It looked like a splashdown, like from like a re-entry from a rocket. No.
Lands on an iceberg in
just
Antarctica.
dropping it in some kind of Arctic.
And then it says the end?
Question mark.
Question mark.
Because it's not dead.
Yeah.
No. It's just frozen.
Just frozen.
I love the theme song, Rachel. I don't know what your problem is.
Oh my God, that theme song is the worst.
Does it fit the tone that they're setting out to make with this movie? Probably not.
Terrible earworm.
But is it ridiculous?
It's so ridiculous.
It's fantastic.
Is it fantastic?
But yeah, this was one of those movies that could have been like 22 minutes long. Like it could have fit into
I don't think it was even that. How long was it?
I said 22
86.
minutes. It was
I understand.
86.
I wonder how long it actually was. It was under 90 minutes.
I knew under 90 minutes.
Yeah, it was. It was short, but it felt long, and it could have been a TV episode length, like with
Like a short story.
commercials removed.
It was based on an idea by who?
An
Irving?
original idea.
An original idea. That's what it says in the credits in the beginning.
Yeah.
Based on an original idea by Irving somebody.
He's probably at a party and like, I don't know what you guys are talking about with creature design. Just make a blob.
It's a blob.
Well, the blob did
Came from
look
space.
pretty good. It looked kind of
was
like
cool.
a melted Jolly
What do you-
Rancher,
yeah.
Smucker's
What do you think it was
preserves
made out of?
kind of thing. That's a proprietary.
Oh, okay. It's secret, trade secret.
I don't know, but it did look pretty good for the short times it was on the
It
screen.
looked like candy.
I remember
Yeah.
the 88 remake of this. I remember liking because they showed like there's way more blob and it shows what the blob does to people.
Like eating
Right,
them. You
like
can see it inside the
Right.
blob. Yeah, that's scarier. That seems more satisfying, I guess. Instead of just strawberry gelatin.
And but I can see why this was a popular drive-in film. There's a lot of you can go to the movie and you can do whatever you want to do with your date and then still go home and be able to catch enough of the film in between because it's so slow and plotted out that if your parents ask you, how was the movie? What was it about?
It was great. It was about the blob.
You could give them a cobbled together recap.
Brief synopsis like we just did.
Yes.
And then Steve, and then Dave, and then Jane. Because they said their name like 500
Every
times. It
time.
was like a subliminal message.
Yeah.
Those are their names.
Dave, I don't know why you're doing this. Well,
Steve.
Jim, I can't believe.
Every time.
But Dave.
Listen, Steve.
So I don't know. That was the Blob.
It was. It blobbed out.
Was it great? No. Was it bad? No. But I can't say I would be like, hey, you guys.
Would you recommend it?
You gotta watch the
anybody?
Blob, the 1958 original.
That one.
Blob, Steve McQueen. Yeah, he's amazing in it.
Steve and Jane.
No.
No, but it is a good example of a drive-in movie for sure.
Steve McQueen's definitely acting. like
He's definitely acting.
No, but it's like he's trying to act way more than the movie called for.
Yeah.
Some of his facial expressions, it's just, he's just trying to act the shit out of it. And it's just like, I don't know if this movie really needed
You don't need that.
His hands in his pockets and his head's kind of down low.
He's like a surly teenager.
Yeah.
30-year-old
30,
teenager.
right? So he's an adult man.
He was 28 years old?
He was 28 years old when this was filmed.
Yeah.
But every single teenager was.
Right.
Like, there were no teens.
They were at least 10 years older.
At least.
Than the oldest you can be.
To be a teenager.
Well, I guess 19. But.
And I fully acknowledge, and I think we've talked about this. If we haven't talked about it on the actual podcast, we've talked about it. Offline, where people in movies when we were kids seem way older in our minds than they probably actually were at the time.
Yeah.
Right? Like, there's that weird where that thing where, like, Mr. Miyagi is the same age, or was the same age back then that, like, Ralph Macchio is now, but, like, they don't, like,
listen,
he seemed way older back then.
Yeah, I watched Beetlejuice the other day, and Lydia's parents or father and stepmother are, like, the same age as we are now.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, I can identify with this dad so much.
Right, he just wants a nice house.
Alone.
He wants this nice little office.
He does. And then, like, when all this crazy shit happens, he's just trying to, like, make some money off of it. He's just trying to make it work for him. I don't think he did anything wrong.
There's a great video on YouTube. I think it's Vsauce that does it. And it talks exactly about this topic, where you see videos from, decades.
The 80s.
Before. And people, all of them seem to look older than you remember being at that age. And it's a really interesting topic, and he kind of dives into it and goes back like 100 years and looks at video from then or film. And it's actually quite an interesting subject.
I forget what the takeaway was, though.
I do too. But
I remember being like,
at the end of it, it's like, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then you just immediately forget
it's over
it.
now. I have memory hold that.
Yeah.
But
it was Vsauce, though.
That was more about why did people look older in the past versus the way they look now or something.
Right.
Whereas Carl is saying, when you're a kid and you watch movies,
everyone looks
old, and now that you're that age of the character, you're like, they weren't old.
Right, but I think that those two topics
they convert,
intersect a lot.
Sure, yeah, they can. But it's true. It's like, oh no, I'm that old now.
Right.
There was another movie we watched the other day where we were the same age as some characters.
It was an Alfred Hitchcock Presents.
Was it?
Yeah.
What was it?
I don't remember. We watched a bunch.
Where are you watching? Where's that streaming?
Peacock.
Yeah?
It's great.
Yeah.
They're great little stories. Like 20 minutes.
I used to watch that when I was younger. You did the intros, right?
Yeah. And they're funny. He's funny. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And his humor is pretty
And they're
good.
great little playlets.
They're like the Twilight Zone, but
not
sci-fi. Yeah.
Like the Murder Twilight Zone.
Yes,
The Murder Zone.
exactly. The Murder Zone.
With Alfred Hitchcock. Yeah. So, no, I wouldn't recommend this.
What would you rate it, Rachel?
Oh, well, it wasn't bad. I'm not going to rate it poorly, but it's boring to me. So it's going to get 2.5 out of 5 Steves. I feel neutral about it.
Nah, I'll go 3 Streeps.
Okay.
I mean, it's taken as a in its time. It's just...
that's okay. You're always more generous with your ratings than I am. I'm stingier, I guess.
But I don't know. We watched it now, and
it doesn't really hold up.
No.
Some films hold up. I don't feel like
it's not even like it's definitely campy, but it's not fun. You know what I mean?
It's
like,
a chore.
I don't know if it's a chore. It's just boring.
Oh, come on. Like the guy who didn't know what helmet to put on?
He was a delight. I liked him.
That was a good joke.
It was. I don't know what to wear.
But if I fall asleep,
it's something.
Or I start fading during a movie.
Yeah.
And I'm not,
the end too, the climactic finish.
It's because it's like my attention span was just sapped. My brain's like, oh my God, stop.
I can't do this anymore. I don't care what happens to Danny.
Would your moms like it?
No.
I mean, maybe in
They're
like, I remember that
they
kind
probably
of way.
watched it when it came out.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know about when it came out.
Or whatever, in that time period.
I think my mom would have been 6.
4.
Yeah, my mom was 11.
6? Your mom would have been 6?
6.
My dad would have been 4. Your mom was 11.
My mom was 11.
I think they were all too young. My mom was 9.
And I can't imagine. My uncle might have.
7?
I was gonna say I can't imagine my grandparents. I don't know whether they took her to the movies or whether she went, because my uncle's 6 years older than her.
Oh.
So he would have been 17.
Maybe he would have.
So maybe he would have taken her. I've never really asked my mom
With the
about
Blob?
her childhood movie habits.
And unless your mom was born in the 40s, she wasn't 9 when she saw this.
No, she was 7.
Yeah.
She was 7. But do you think this movie was too scary for younger children
No.
in the 50s?
No.
Is it scary?
I mean, it's no scarier than like the Universal monsters. Like it's
Yeah, no, that's
like
true. I would argue that
like I don't know,
Those are
people,
scarier.
but people
Yeah.
were so people weren't desensitized back then. You know, like what did people find scary back then?
Well, okay.
I don't know.
Take
That's a good question.
Bela Lugosi's Dracula, right?
It was scary.
Dracula as a story is scary. Dracula as an idea is scary. Bela Lugosi's portrayal of that character is scary, right?
Scared your mom.
It did.
I know.
And,
she still talks about it.
She does. That's true. She always thought he was in her closet.
Yeah.
It was going to come out.
Yeah.
But the Blob, it's...
I guess it could be scary if you watch it at a young and impressionable age. You're like, oh my God, this gelatinous mass is going to eat me alive.
As a creature, though, a gelatinous mass is not necessarily terrifying.
Well,
No, I think maybe when it's interacting with a person, like with the old timer at the beginning,
Right.
when it's like consuming his hand.
Or it's like the doctor.
Yeah, that might be
Yeah.
a little unsettling.
Yeah.
But watching it like flop through the windows at the theater or like flop on top of the diner, not so much.
Right.
No.
And it never really chases anyone. It just appears and then the person dies.
No, I mean, it oozes toward them.
Yeah,
All right, but
it's insidious.
I didn't feel like there was any sort
Inexorable.
of build-up of,
No.
anxiety. Or
It didn't seem necessarily quick moving.
No.
Sometimes it was.
No, but you would inexplicably, not be able to escape or
Like fall in terror.
fall down and be out of breath.
There was a lot of falling in terror. Definitely.
Yeah.
That's what happened to the nurse. It's terrible. And that happened to Jane, too, in the grocery store. She just fell.
Fell.
It's like the guy that got run over by Austin Powers. What, didn't he have he was on like a steamroller, wasn't he? He was like, get out of the way.
Oh, yeah,
the guy
yeah,
was like,
No.
Yes.
I haven't seen those movies in so long either.
Time to move.
Well,
that's
that was fun. It was. Come on.
No, Rachel, you've.
I know. I don't know what I'm going to pick. I have a couple of ideas, but I don't know. Do you know what you're going to choose?
I have no idea. I have some movies about actual drive-ins.
Do you really?
Well, we've watched one pre-podcast.
Yeah.
Dead End Drive-In about that Australian movie where they put all the troublemakers, they lock them in the drive-in.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they show up and then they can't leave and then
they take their tires, they take all the tires off their car.
Yes.
And then they're just stuck in the drive-in.
That was weird.
That was a weird one.
weird movie. That's right.
That was Dead End Drive-In?
That was Dead End Drive-In.
Wasn't that like a post-apocalyptic?
Yes.
Yeah. Kind of like Mad Max, right? But bad.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, I don't know.
But I also have a movie called Drive-In Massacre.
Oh.
But that's if I want to be a stickler for the theme is memories from the drive-in.
Well, that movie is a memory of a drive-in.
I mean, it's a movie about a drive-in.
I think it could work.
I think you're just making shit up.
Me?
Yes.
Well, you can make anything up. You can argue that it works.
No, I know. But
I don't know what I'm going to pick.
I think...
But I don't have a lot of prevailing memories from the drive-in, so that's why this theme is going to be a challenge for me.
You have carte blanche. You can do whatever you want.
Well, yeah, you can always do whatever you want.
Yeah, I mean, I could just look up movies that were popular at drive-ins and...
Yeah, you could do that. You could.
Yeah.
I don't know. I might go outrageous. I might pick from your collection, Carl. I know you have a
I've
lot.
got plenty of movies that were probably shown in
drive-in movies.
Many a drive. I thought you were going to do Harry and the Hendersons.
I might.
Or
I don't know
think
if I
of
feel
a
like
different
watching that.
creative alternate take on the theme.
I'll think about it. I will think
There's
about it.
always that option.
Yeah.
Hey, I think it's not open on Tuesdays. I could say we could all go to the drive-in and see a movie.
We could.
That would be fun, actually.
I think they're
But
only open on
it's
weekends.
cold.
Yeah.
We'll get carbon monoxide poisoning if we keep the car
Cold.
running.
It's going to be like 77 degrees on Halloween.
Yeah, but then it's going to get cold again.
That's true.
Halloween has already passed, by the way, by the
I
time
know.
we're doing this.
I know.
So the time
We are
vortex.
speaking from the past.
That's right, the future.
Yeah. But in reality,
Yes.
next week, when we record the episode, not only will it be election day, but it will be your birthday.
It's true.
And doesn't Andrew celebrate a birthday?
On the 2 days after mine.
That's 2 days after yours?
Loyal listener, Andrew. Hi, Andrew.
Yes.
Hi,
Hey, Andrew.
Happy birthday.
Belated birthday.
Yes.
now.
Yes.
But I'll wish you happy birthday in person. I mean, not in person. That's
Person.
weird.
You going
We're
somewhere?
going to California, everybody.
Yeah, let's go. No, on his birthday. I can't with the time. It's really fucking with my head,
Wow.
like Beck says.
And then we're going to turn the clocks back this
I
weekend.
love falling back. I love to
Worst.
fall back.
Leave the friggin' clocks alone.
You know, we should.
Imaginary masters of time.
Getting now just be
Abolish.
dark at 4 o'clock. It's just I don't
Twice a
hate
year,
it.
we're like, add an hour.
Yeah.
Delete an hour.
But I like, if we have to do it, which we really don't.
We don't.
I prefer falling back.
Nope.
Because we gain an hour in the
we
morning.
don't gain anything.
I don't.
You
And then
do.
now my cats are going to wake me up at 5 o'clock in the morning instead of 6 o'clock to eat.
Well, that's your fault for feeding them in the morning. Feed them at night.
No. It should stay lighter out.
So we should have
later.
daylight savings all the time.
Daylight saving should be
That's
standard
rough,
time.
though. That's
and
rough waking up in the morning in the dark.
No, it
I don't
isn't.
like it. I don't like to do that.
Oh, you like it to get dark at 4 o'clock?
I would rather
like
it stay
either.
darker later in the morning.
Yes. Same.
100%.
I don't know.
Right.
I just want to pick one. I don't care which one at this point. The back and forth messes with my circadian rhythm and everybody else's. And it's not healthy. And we don't need it.
Yeah, and the only time people like falling back is that day. That the clock's, it's like, oh, I get an extra hour of sleep. And
I
then
do
it
like
just
that.
sucks.
And then they're used to it, and except now it's dark earlier.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just dumb. But we can never get it together enough to just stop. Does anyone really want it anymore? Is there anyone?
No.
Wasn't there a vote on it
I thought there was
somewhere?
like a bill.
People are putting a bill together to
There
be
was,
voted on.
but I think it just died. What happened? That was the one bipartisan thing that we could come together and do.
Right, this could have united the country.
It could. This is your patriotic duty.
Well,
to abolish setting the clocks
Not-
back and forward.
not to, be boring about it, but I think that there's a real cost associated with eliminating something that's been established for so long, where it comes down to, automated systems and computers and flights and
it's all right, though.
all that stuff. That's a big deal. And then,
All they have to do is take away the programming to
Just patch everything.
just do it.
jump ahead or fall
Just
back.
change it, man.
Well, everyone freaked out over Y2K and that was fine, so
That was for a different reason.
whatever. I think it can be done.
All right, don't get him started on Y2K.
I don't want. We can't go
Listen,
back.
I was locked in
We can't go back.
a government facility working on shit
That's right.
for a long time because of that, and that was all stupid nonsense.
Yeah. Well, that's what we do around here.
Anyway,
All right.
so you're up next. We'll be recording on Election Day on your birthday.
Wow, this is like a double whammy.
So
No pressure.
pick something good.
Pick the best. I told you guys you have to like whatever I pick because it's my birthday, no
Not
matter
true.
what happens.
That's not how MRT works.
Well, it should be on my birthday when I'm 29 again. Wow.
I hit the wrong button. It's supposed
What
to
did
be.
you mean?
There we go.
Thank you. We have to go.
Pick the wrong one, so you got all of them.
Thanks so much.
All right. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Beware of the blob.